Peter, you are live on Substack.
Happy Friday, Miami. This is Buy, Sell, Hold Miami. It's a real estate podcast between myself, I'm Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I'm also the founder of Miami Condo Investing Club. And my co-host, Daniel Hernandez. He's a real estate professional, does single family houses as well as condos for a company called Compass Real Estate. His office is located in Coconut Grove. That being said, let me go ahead and pass the baton over to our moderator, our MC, no one else but Daniel. What's up, Daniel?
What's up, Peter? How goes all in white and your white typical is fashioned?
Listen, I have two. That's the thing I love about being a guy. White means you're working, black means you're going out. Other than that, you don't have to think. You
I
can
don't think
focus
I
on
own
other
a
things like data
single-
and sports scores.
I don't think I own a single black piece of clothing.
Nothing really.
I'm
You must be married.
I got my prints and stuff. Everything is blue. But in any event, we got a lot to talk about today, Peter. So everybody, welcome, Buy, Sell, Hold Miami. My name is Daniel Hernandez, and if you haven't joined us before, we got a little bit of an interesting format. So if you've ever watched Pardon the Interruption on ESPN, we pick 5 topics every week. They all have to do with real estate or maybe a tangent off of real estate, but we try to back everything into real estate. And so this week we got 5 topics for you. We allocate about 7 minutes for each topic. And then at the end of each topic, we either buy, sell, or we hold. We're buying it, we're selling it, or, well, we don't know. And sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree, sometimes we change our minds because we're adults and we can do that. But anyway, I'm going to jump right into it. And our social media folks tell us, because we have social media folks. I'm kidding. We don't have social media folks. We just got me and Peter. But they tell us that controversy drives engagement. So all you folks like to hear about controversy and civil discourse. So Peter, the Coconut Grove Playhouse has been around for close to 100 years. It opened in 1927. And just to give you a little bit of perspective, 1927, yes, nearly 100 years ago, 98 years ago now, but it opened in 1927. What was around in Miami in 1927? Not a whole lot. So when this Coconut Grove Playhouse opened, with about 1,150 seats, you couldn't even drive to Key Biscayne. Key Biscayne, the Rickenbacker didn't open until the 40s. The MacArthur opened in 1920, although it's not the same MacArthur Causeway we know today. The Venetian Causeway opened in 1927. So there wasn't even a lot of sand and beach fun to be had in Miami back in 1927. And so for several decades, well, more than several decades, 80 years or so, until 2006, the Coconut Grove Playhouse was operating. And there were shows, and it was a community asset. And then in 2006, it closed. And so for the past 20 years, there's been this, it's been this part of community contention of, hey, what the hell are we going to do with this 100,000 square foot plot in the middle of Coconut Grove, right on Main Highway, across the street from Ransom Everglades and Carrollton, next to all the restaurants. It's largely just a parking lot and this empty theater. And then over the last few years, there's been a lease agreement, a long-term lease agreement, so it's probably like a 99-year lease with FIU and Gable Stage. And that's for the Playhouse. The Playhouse, by the way, conservationists love this, was placed on the National Register of Historic Places back in 2018, much to the outcry of, I'm sure, plenty of developers who just wanted to tear the whole thing down. So the Playhouse is here to stay, but how much is the Playhouse is here to stay? And how is this being communicated to the community? How's the process? Peter, do you have any insight into this?
Well, I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to have actually gone to the Coconut Grove Playhouse before it shut down. Did you ever make it, Daniel? Were you ever in there?
Never. So,
Yeah,
actually, funny enough, I went to Ransom, and Ransom Everglades actually used that parking lot for student parking.
Got it.
And today, if you go to Coconut Grove on a Saturday or Sunday, that parking lot is packed to the gills. There's absolutely no parking in Coconut Grove.
Nothing at all. I would probably describe it as, think about the shittiest, crappiest movie theater you've ever been to, like one of the real old school ones. Well, it was worse than that. You'd walk in there, it was all musty. It stunk like
Well, it's 100 years old.
Well, yeah, yeah, 100%. Well, that was 20 years ago, so I can just imagine what the small's going to be like inside there. But it was quaint. It was not the Gusman, which we've been talking about recently over in downtown Miami on Flagler Street, which Pitbull wants to buy. It was it was more it kind of it felt like a real old money. Old money doesn't need to wow you. Old money just sort of there. It does what it
Needs
does. It
to
has
exist.
stature. Yeah, it exists, and that's pretty much what it was. I mean, it was fantastic. But the Coconut Grove Playhouse is really kind of interesting. I've read some of the history, and I've spoken to or listened to people like Paul George, the resident historian over at the Miami History Museum, and things like that. There was a lot going on back then when the Coconut Grove Playhouse was actually put up, including there was some sort of ordinance, and I don't know when it disappeared, in terms of the Bahamians who were involved with actively building and then basically working as, I don't know what you call it, servants, staff,
Ushers.
whatever. Yeah, 100%. But in some of the houses around there where they couldn't live within a certain distance from the water, and there was all kinds of. So this playhouse goes all the way back, and then even more modern times. The playhouse is actually right next to what used to be a famous old watering hole called a Taurus. Taurus actually got
Sure.
torn down. Yep, they rebuild aspects of it. I kept certain aspects. They put up a condo. They put up some restaurants, things like that. Anybody doesn't know the Taurus sort of its claim to fame was during the 1960s. The whole, I don't know, hippie movement, whatever you want to call
The
it.
Beatles
A
would
lot of
hang out there,
musicians in the
right?
Grove. Yeah, a lot of musicians in the Grove ended up going out to California, and it was all part of that scene that took place in California. I think David Crosby was one of the local musicians or somebody living down here. He then picked up. He went out to California with Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. It was one of them. I don't remember. I don't necessarily know the music. I recognize some of the songs, but the Grove was always this bohemian type of community, and the Taurus was actually located right next to Coconut Grove Playhouse. So you had the juxtaposition of the hippie community, and then you had like the fine arts, if you will, of the Performing Arts Center, because all of it predated the Adrian Arts Center over there in downtown Miami, where they took over the old Sears. They used the front of the Sears is kind of like the landmark aspect, and then they built this wonderful Performing Arts Center. So the Grove is a special place. What is it? Kirk Monroe. Is it Kirk Monroe or Ralph Monroe? I always confuse the two.
No,
Who basically settled out there.
like
The
Kirk Monroe
Barnacle still
Park
stands.
off of Grand Avenue.
Yeah. But the sailor, the old salty, whose house has been turned into a state
Are you?
historic.
You're not talking about the Barnacle, are you?
Yeah, the Barnacle. Yeah, is that Ralph Monroe or Kirk Monroe? Because
I don't know. You know what? I haven't been on one of those Paul George Miami history boat tours since I was like
Mhm.
10 years old. Does he still do those?
He still does them. In fact, he's going to be doing them in September. They're looking now that we're coming up on a 100-year anniversary of a number of different communities, including like Hialeah, Opelika, places like that. He's
Coral
going to be
Gables,
doing them
no?
every Wednesday.
Coral Gables is having its centennial, isn't it?
Yep. Pretty much all of the communities down here, they all kind of came together at the same time. Things were rocking and rolling, but Paul George is going to be doing some of these tours. But my fellow tidbit about the Coconut Grove is, this thing's been kicked around for 20 years. Nobody's ever dealt with it. They were talking about fixing it up back when I went in there, and that would have been 20 years ago or so. Um, I'm not really sure what they're going to do with it. It's a valuable piece of dirt. With all this tax money coming in, with all this new development, impact fees, things like that, how have they not been able to basically restore it or revert to facadism, where you keep the outside of it and then you incorporate that into some sort of new development? It makes no sense to me given the appreciation that's occurred. And remember, property taxes are 2%, roughly a third to the city, a third to the county, a third to the school board. There's got to be some extra cash laying around, even when you carve out all of the slush fund money
Well, I mean
to fix this thing up.
that's what we were talking about the other week with the Olympia. Same deal. So, but
Yep.
question, and I don't know this. Maybe you do. Does the Coconut Grove Playhouse fall under the purview of the county, or like the Olympia Theater, the Gusman, the city?
I don't know enough about it simply because it's been out there for so long. At some point I read about it, but I just don't remember. You actually forget about the Coconut Grove Playhouse because it's been closed for so long.
It's
Almost to
it's
the
just
point where
there.
Yeah, well, and you got to wonder if it hasn't like impeded development in improvements in the community because it's just sitting there and the way the fencing is set up, chain link fencing, you can't get from call it the West Grove, which is traditionally the Bahamian community, over into the Center
No,
Grove
you
or
can't. You have to
yeah, no,
walk
it's all
all the
like
way
cut
around.
off.
You can't walk from Thomas
Correct,
to Green Street.
correct. And it really becomes clear, like for instance, if it's a weekend and it is overwhelmed with traffic and you figure, all right, let me go park in the West Grove and I'll walk across. You can't get through. Everything is cut off, almost harkening back to the days when you had these ordinances and there were actually walls segregating or separating the two communities over there. New Times did a story of probably about 10, 15 years ago, just kind of detailing at portions of the wall that separated back in the day during segregation and all the old Miami stuff. It's still in place.
So what does the future hold for the Grove Playhouse? I was on the county site, and the last report is for May. I guess because nobody publishes anything over the summer because nobody bothers to read it anyway. But the last report was in May, and there was this disaster where they had to call in some specialists to throw up support beams. I think they put one of the workers in a hospital. But for the last several months, they've been removing asbestos piece by piece. I mean, the place, as you said, it's just a moldy disaster zone, but it's on the National Register of Historic Places, so they have to do something. So the current plan, per the county, is that 1,100 seat theater, they're actually going to pull back, and it's going to be a 300 seat theater. And then if you look at the map around it, the rest of that parking lot is going to turn into retail and shops and restaurants. But the plan is, and in typical Miami fashion, the plan is to have the playhouse, not everything else, open by its 100th birthday in 2027. So that's 2 years from now. So that might happen before or after Ken Griffin decides to build his building. But and the airport improvement. Remember, we're renovating the whole airport in the next 3 years. That's
And we have the World Cup coming, so we're also too extending the Metro Rail all the way up to Joe Robbie or Hard Rock Stadium or whatever the hell they call it nowadays.
Hard Rock. It's Hard Rock, no?
Hard Rock.
Hard
Land
Rock.
Shark.
It was Land Shark for a little bit.
Pro Player.
So the Coconut Grove Playhouse, despite the scene in and around it, Coconut Grove has exploded. And it hasn't just been the $50 million houses on the water. You got land trading, small lots there on Thomas and Franklin and Charles trading for $1 million for, your typical 6,000, 7,000 square foot lot. Now, what are they doing? We're tearing these down and we're plugging in two duplexes, 2,500 square feet, and those are selling. They're selling in West Grove, and this isn't even West Grove really, because West Grove is like Elizabeth Street. It's closer to Douglas. This is, Commodore Place's backyard. You're behind the Playhouse, or will be the Playhouse. You're behind all these restaurants. So this little area here, $1,000 a square foot. Crazy, right?
Wow. What was the pricing on Ellen Morris's project when he's putting up that's going to replace the Italian restaurant, the Coconut Grove Laundry,
Well,
the Last Carrot?
Sapore di Mare is moving to Main Highway. I think I don't know if they have already moved or they're in the process of moving. They have the signage up already, right there next to Bodega, and where they have that Books and Books and the Warby Parker, and then the Alan Morris project. The pricing, I think it's 16 units. 16 like high-end units for $1,800, $2,000 a square foot, and then 100,000 square feet of high-end office space. I think they're asking in the range of $150 a square foot.
Wow.
So there, that building that they put next to the Playhouse, that Class A office space with the like martini bar on top, level 6. It's quite nice.
Yeah, the
beautiful
one.
views, sweeping views. I mean, you have views of Coconut Grove, Brickell, all the way down to Deering Bay. I mean, I'm sure on a clear day you might even be able to see Turkey Point. But they're basically taking that boutique Class A office space model and blowing it up on the corner where the Cleaners is, right behind Kirk Memorial Park. And we talked about developer improvements last week, and that's one of Alan Morris's sort of concessions, gimmies to the city, is that he's redoing Kirk Monroe Park, which needs it. I mean, I've played tennis at that tennis center. It's all cracked concrete. I mean, come on. I mean, you wouldn't think that there's $1,000 a square foot houses being sold across the street.
Interesting. I hope the city, I hope the county, I hope whoever's involved with the Coconut Grove Playhouse can actually bring it back somehow, some way. Maybe if they go forward, the city of Miami goes forward ultimately with this Pitbull deal. Pitbull, the musician who has a school and basically wanted to buy the Gusman in downtown Miami on Flagler, and then put money into it, stabilize it, and then turn it into a hybrid situation. Maybe the Playhouse should follow the same type of pattern, because if you leave it up to the government, we see 20 years later nothing's going to happen, and
that would be,
I mean, it's valuable dirt, but they don't do anything.
Is that your proposal? Throw a school in there? I think there's already way too much expensive real estate taken up with schools on the water there. I think it would be crazy, but
I don't know. I don't know what you do with that place. Have you ever, you've been in the lobby of the Biltmore Hotel in the Gables, right?
Sure.
Yeah, so you know how you go up on the second floor and you got the ramp, and then you walk in, and they got all the bird cages around. Yeah, that's how the Coconut Grove Playhouse felt. It was kind of cool, but it was also kind of like, what are you going to do with it? So if you restore it, do you restore it back to its former glory, or do you just like blow it all out and turn into something that's kind of modern? And and that's kind of the rub.
I mean,
that's the challenge.
I don't know how much they can blow out.
Yeah.
I would imagine that reducing the seats by 75% already has a bunch of conservationists' hair on fire. But
listen, I got the answer. I got the answer for you. So the county wants to dump off the library, which is right there on Flagler Street, across from the Dade County Courthouse, the old one as well as the new one. You know what I'm talking about? It's got the Spanish Spanish design.
I haven't been in there.
Okay. So if you have a chance, go to downtown Miami, and your incentive afterwards is there's a little shithole bar over there called the Old Dubliner. You can go have a drink afterwards. You can take the Metro Rail, but there's this library. It's all in case it's like Alhambra in Spain, and ultimately they want to knock it down and they want to reposition it because nobody uses it. It's primarily just occupied for the most part by homeless.
You mean a building full of books? Oh, burn that thing down.
Yeah, exactly. But also what's there is Miami History Museum. Why don't they refurbish the Coconut Grove Playhouse, take all the museums, Miami History Museum, stuff like that, and simply relocate them over to Coconut Grove? I mean, it makes all the sense in the world.
It makes all the sense in the world, but if you ask a developer, they're going to say you're out of your mind, that there's far too valuable.
Yeah, but maybe there's a trade-off with the county land where the library is in downtown Miami, across from the courthouses, old and the original Dade County Courthouse, and earmark this and turn it into like a historical park.
Oh, like what we were talking about, the archaeology museum.
Yeah.
We can put all the Indian bones.
It would be a perfect fit, and then that would bring attention to Tourist Bar, which is still kind of there. Doesn't have the same vibe as it used to back in the day. You got Commodore Plaza.
It's got a very difficult trivia night. I've been.
Oh, really? Okay.
Got an ungodly difficult trivia night.
And then you got Old Man Monroe's house, the Barnacle. So you could turn it into like the historical aspect of Miami. That would make. I like that.
So I'll buy that. We got to move on to the next topic, but I'll buy that.
That I will buy. Them refurbishing it, getting it done by 2027, not going to happen.
I mean,
and that's probably a perfect segue for the next story. So I'm a sell.
So, but what's the question on it then? I'd like the Coconut Grove Playhouse to be awesome. I want them to do something to it. Is it going to open by 2027? I think across the board we're saying no.
We're saying no. That's a sell.
That's a sell.
Any news you hear about the Coconut Grove Playhouse.
What else is happening in Miami infrastructure, Peter? We looked at a few articles this week describing the reopening of sections A and B, and I'm going to pull up a map for us in a little bit on Flagler in downtown. For those of you who live downtown, who live in 50 Biscayne or any of these buildings along Flagler, or if you ever went to the old decrepit Macy's, you would know that Flagler is, well, a disaster. It's been closed for a better part of, I don't know, 3 years now?
I think it's 21.
Yeah, so 3-4 years now. Any business that has survived this road closure, hats off to them, because unless you're a destination, like you got Lost Boy, you got Over Under, there's some dive bars, Mama Tried's down there, but I think that's on the open part of Flagler. And